Can introverts really be leaders? Can they be good ones? Don't you have to be extroverted to be a leader? Isn't that the story we've been told? I don't agree with it. I believe that introverts have amazing superpowers, and that's what Salvatore Manzi is talking about in today's episode with me, all about the introvert's advantage. And I'm going to do a quick introduction and we're going to jump straight in because he has so much value to share that I know that you're going to take a lot away from it. Salvatore is a leadership communications coach with over 20 years of experience helping technical, analytical, and data-driven leaders amplify their impact. With emphasis on frameworks, principles, and techniques, Salvatore empowers leaders to connect authentically and navigate high-stakes engagements with confidence. He's an introvert who learned how to harness the power of the spotlight and has a passion for building inclusive, high-performing team environments through effective communication. As a raging introvert myself, that people can't compute with my charisma and extroverted nature, this is a great episode. And if you are a quiet leader who is maybe holding themselves back a little bit, this episode is going to be for you. So let's dive on in. Hello, Salvatore. It's so nice to have you here on Lead with Less.
Thank you, Tosh. It's great to be here with you.
We had a bit of a chat before we hit record about introverts and introversion, and I've mentioned that I'm a huge introvert. And I mean, I don't talk about it quite a lot, but I do love to be on my own and recharge on my own, and I can drain energy quite quickly. But a lot of people don't believe that I'm an introvert because I do videos and I run workshops and I talk at conferences and I have a podcast. I'm quite like a charismatic, chatty person. And, and as we said, that can be quite a big myth about someone who's maybe more introverted versus someone who's more extroverted. So I'm really excited to talk about that because I know that a lot of my audience hold themselves back with this idea that they can't lead if they're not extroverted, or their introversion is kind of crux or an Achilles heel. So before we dive deep into that, which I'm excited about, I really want to know what led you to working and supporting introverts specifically. So why this kind of niche topic, and why do you believe it's an important aspect, especially in the leadership space, that we need to be talking about?
It is important for anyone out there who considers himself a quiet leader. There might have been times where you left a meeting saying, "Oh, I wish I'd said," or you got passed over promotion because of the more boisterous person was taking up all the air in the room or whatever. I help those analytical, scientific, STEM, data-driven leaders use frameworks and techniques and strategies to show up with greater presence and let their leadership be seen. I myself am an introvert. My father was a public speaker. He inspired me. He came home so lit up from every one of his talks that I had to do the same. I realized that I didn't crave the spotlight, but as an introvert, when I'm in the spotlight, I have control. I can direct the spotlight to my message. I can direct the spotlight to somebody else. And that sense of control in the spotlight made me, as an introvert, feel useful and powerful. I just had to learn the tools to get there. And so as I started working with professionals about 20 years ago, I was in the Bay Area working with a lot of engineers, analysts, data-driven, mostly quiet leaders, right? And I started to notice this trend where they were looking for ways to speak up or be heard or be seen or have a seat at the table that actually represents their caliber at leadership. And so started creating these frameworks and tools and techniques, and I've been sharing them ever since.
I love that. I really love how you said when you're in the spotlight, you can actually be in control and leverage it to your advantage. So I'm really interested to know more about that. But I guess that does actually tie in quite nicely to my next question of what value do introverts bring to leadership? Like what makes people who are more introverted, more quiet, more like what you're saying, like analytical, more internal thought processes, what value do they bring?
Introverts have a lot of advantages when it comes to meetings and comes to leading teams. And my question would be to anyone listening, before I give you that list, ask yourself, what advantage do I have as a quiet leader? How is it the way I show up is advantageous to my and the group's benefit right now? I would list out a whole series, but I'll just hit a couple of top ones. Number one, big thinkers. Quiet leaders tend to be more aware, self-aware, room aware, personal rare. I judge more introverted people are assessing the situation, evaluating a lot more variables, taking a lot of more data. I am grateful for the extroverts who come in loud, create that energy, that chaos, really create the energy and synergy to get things going. I think it needs to be anchored with the more introverted who's got an eye on all of the variables, is able to have a big thought about it, think about it, and then when they speak, have something profound or important when they share. So there may not be leading the conversation up front, but they're adding great value when they do turn to express it. The second thing I would say that I've noticed with introverted, because they are watching the room carefully, they can echo and call out other people's contributions in ways that people leaders really want to set as a benchmark. Like, this is how you do it. You want to double click and you want to echo the voices of the most like valuable members, which could get lost. And it's typically, I notice, the introvert that says, getting back to what Sarah said, and da 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 da. It's really helpful. Third, I would offer that introverts, because we take time to process, there's a pause there. Sometimes it look like a deer in headlights kind of pause, right? But the wheels are turning. There's a think before react, an ability to handle that silence for a little bit, ability to stop and think before I simply react to what you were said. And let's face it, there's a lot of times in meetings where it's just a dynamic series of reactions, chain reactions, and we've lost the plot entirely. If there's an introvert in the room, we'll get back on course. And I think there's real value to that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. And I guess that comes back to some thoughts or some myths, I guess, that come around with introverts and extroverts. And what are the common myths that people get stuck in when we're like, oh, they're introverted or oh, they're extroverted? What are the myths that anybody really has about introverted natured people and extroverted natured people that you've come across in your work? And what would be your busters to those? Like, how would we bust those myths?
I love Mythbusters. Can I turn the question back to you? What are some myths that have been thrown onto you? Like, what if, and when you've been in an organization in a leadership role, what have people projected onto you when they perceive you as a quiet leader? Like, what have they misnomered you with?
I think I'm a bit different in this way. Like I am hugely introverted in the way that I replenish my energy. So I definitely need to be on my own and have a lot of downtime. But in context where there's other people, I generally am always part of the conversation. I'm very rarely super quiet. Like in a team meeting, if we were having like a group discussion, I I've done a lot of like pre-thought before the meeting, but I don't often necessarily sit in the meeting and kind of take a lot of time to think through something before I might say something. So I guess that's where people look to me and they don't understand. Like from an energetic perspective, I think I'm very heavily introverted, but from a like a social group dynamic contributions way, I lean more towards my extroverted nature where I'm like, I want to be part of the conversation. I want to throw in my ideas. I sometimes don't have really developed forethought before I share an idea. Like I think I can play between the two quite a lot. And so I think that's also where people challenge to see that I'm introverted in nature. But from an energy perspective, I'm very introverted in nature. And that's probably why I don't talk about it very often because it's not super black and white or super like clear when someone looks at me or interacts with me because they wouldn't obviously see it unless they spend like my husband would definitely be like, yeah, you're a raging introvert because he sees me all the time at home. So I don't know if I have like a good a good response there, which is why I have you here, right? Because I want to get your expertise on this.
I love what you brought up there. Introverts show up in different ways. And so the first myth might be that an introvert looks in a specific way, right? A myth I hear a lot is that introverts don't have a lot to say, which is wrong. Introverts do have a lot to say. We just need the right access point and we need the right environment to share it. Typically, introverts don't like the shallow conversations or the superficial conversations. There needs to be some substance. Anybody who can function in society is able to hold a social chat for a minute, but if you put me in a room for networking, I've got 15 minutes. My battery is 15 minutes and then I'm out of there. Unless I connect to somebody and we start having a real conversation. And then it's unlikely that I talk to anybody else because we're going to dive deep and we're going to unpack and we're going to go because introverts do have a lot to say. We just need the right setting, environment to offer that. I think the second thing that introverts don't have strong opinions, right? That we appear to be very flexible and easygoing. I disagree. I have very strong opinions. I may not always share them. I'm evaluating what's the social battery cost of me interjecting and interrupting and course correcting where I think things are going. If I don't see it as advantageous and I don't think that my energy is going to be worth it, I'm not going to invest it. Unlike an extrovert who I judge is going to just keep throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks. I'm much more judicious. I'm discerning about what I'm adding and contributing to it. Those are two of the myths that I would say. Are there any others that pop up for you?
I think the biggest myth is that they're not confident. Like, this is something that I hear all the time, that introverts aren't confident because they're not that front of the room charismatic. I think charismatic is also a myth, that introverts aren't charismatic, because you can definitely see some who, you know, you talk to. Like, I've been told I'm very charismatic. I'm like, yeah, I'm a huge introvert. They'll be like, no, that doesn't compute. And again, it's that myth of we're just one or the other, or it's like that you fit into this box and you're this person. So that would definitely be the other myth that I hear very often is, yeah, introverts aren't confident and
Mm-mm.
they're shy. I hate this. When people say my son is shy, I'm like, no, he's an observer and he's slow to warm. He's not shy. He's an observer. He's observing. He's getting the lay of the land before he then decides how he's going to contribute, which is exactly what you were saying, right? Like, I'm going to assess and then decide, one, whether I want to contribute, and two, how am I going to contribute that I get the best out of this? And you made a really good point around the environment, and I think that's one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. It's what environment are we creating or are we in that really helps to bring out these aspects of ourselves or these traits where I can give my best parts, right? Like, I can give my slow thinking, and I don't mean that as like a negative thing. It's like, it's slow, it's thoughtful, it's
Right.
intentional. My considered approach, my quiet nature. Like, are we in environments and are we creating environments where those aspects of people can really come out?
Yeah, I love it. I want to double click on what you're saying. Quiet leaders are often the best leaders. They Susan Cain quotes book research from Harvard in her book Quiet that demonstrates quiet leaders, they lead teams that often have a higher productivity than extroverted leaders. I think one of the myths too is that we don't show up looking like leaders because people have this perception that the more charismatic, I agree, I can be charismatic as an introvert. And there's a whole YouTube channel, Charisma on Command. It's tools on how to demonstrate charisma that don't necessarily mean extroverted or boisterous or bombacious or any of those things. Being charismatic is really being connected, showing curiosity, showing interest in the other person. Now there's entertaining. Great. We all like entertaining, but if I'm in a meeting trying to get something done, I don't really want to be entertained. I don't care how charismatic this person is, and I love the stories, but I need to move things forward. I've got things on my desk I gotta get to, right? So charisma isn't necessarily the leader, but yeah, quiet leaders are leaders. They are confident and they have charisma and they bring a lot of value to the table. I want to double click on what you said too about creating the space. I've read research, I don't know if it's true. It can take up to 10 seconds for a highly introverted person to consider a prompt before responding. 10 seconds is a long silence. If I'm leading a meeting and I say, well, what do you think we should do? And I have to wait 10 seconds to get a response, people might look around the room and be like, porch lights on and nobody's home here. And that's because of the delay bias. Have you heard of the delay bias? Yes, we all have this unconscious bias that if a person doesn't respond in what we perceive to be an actual, like a proper amount of time, something's not quite happening there. We double and we invert it on ourselves most often. We pressure ourselves. And this comes from school. Let's just be honest. Teacher
Oh,
asked a
God.
question, if you keep your hand up, like blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you either give up or you like whatever. But the delay bias works against us as well. It creates that pressure to have the right answer, have it right, be concise, be clear, which
Do it
is why
quickly.
do it quickly. Like, don't let anybody interrupt you. Get it all out there. This is why I've created a whole series of frameworks in my book, Clear and Compelling, that's coming out in September. There's a whole series of frameworks that help put your mind in, put all that information into a frame so that you can express it quickly. Because here's problem number 2. The longer I wait to speak in a meeting, the higher the pressure becomes to get it right, to have a profound insight, to share something valuable. If I can get my voice into the meeting in the top 5-10 minutes, echoing what somebody said, calling out what I hope to see in this, sharing a valuable insight about what the topic is, if I can get my voice in the first 5 minutes, then later on in the meeting, the pressure is a little bit less for me to contribute. And I can use any of my frameworks that I've practiced in low stakes situations and got the muscle memory. I can practice those in the meeting to make a valuable contribution from my place of introversion and my perspective of the situation.
The delay bias is this is just a whole
Oh,
thing, isn't it?
yes.
It's a whole thing. This comes up in when I'm doing training around feedback conversations, difficult conversations. It's this discomfort of silence and our inability to sit in that silence. Because if you have a leader who is uncomfortable with silence or maybe extroverted and is very chatty and just loves things like moving along and moving along, they are going to be less likely to hold the space for someone who is more intentional in thought, who needs more processing time to be able to powerfully contribute or add value or speak in those meetings. And so this is like one of the biggest things that I actually do a lot of my leadership training is getting leaders to be comfortable in silence and being, well, one, it's comfortable in silence, like in the moment. Can we actually practice you just being quiet, just not saying anything? And then 2 is how can you be more prepared so that you don't put people on the spot where possible? Because this is the other thing that I know about quiet leaders and those who are more introverted in the way that they think and process is if you can give me a heads up on what we're going to talk about, what you're going to ask me for, what you're going to want me to talk about in the meeting, I can do all of my forethought, my preparation, and then I can just go in the meeting because I
Right.
know what you're going to ask me. I know what we're going
Right.
to talk about. And this is about creating meetings that matter versus, oh, let's just get together and like, oh, let's just all just throw stuff out there and hope that we actually get an outcome. And then the introverts are
That's
like,
awesome.
oh God, I don't want to do any of this.
Yeah, no, no, sorry. I'm
Yeah.
gonna need a recuperation time after that. That's
Yeah.
insane.
And then
Yeah.
again, we then create we put a meaning on top of it, being like, oh, they were quiet, they weren't contributing, they weren't engaged. Well, did you create the conditions for everybody on your team to be able to contribute? And this is one of the biggest things. And this is why quiet leaders are actually really powerful because they tend to have higher emotional intelligence, which means that they are, like what you were saying, they have more social awareness, which means that they're paying more attention, they're watching, they're looking, oh, that person looks like they want to say something, but they keep holding back. Is there someone else dominating the room? Am I creating the space for them to be able to speak up? And
Right.
this is not to say that extroverted leaders can't have high emotional
No,
intelligence. They do.
they do. They have great emotional
Yeah.
intelligence.
It's just, are they really intentional with it? Are they using it in the way that again creates the conditions for people?
I think that there's a couple things that happen for more extroverted leaders is they're feeling the energy, they're wanting to drive the energy. Sometimes, and this could be introverted, extroverted, there's a people-pleasing aspect. I'm not comfortable with silence because it makes me think that there's something wrong in the moment and I have to fix it, so I'm going to fill it. I can't do it. But to your point, what extroverted leaders often do, as emotionally intelligent as they might be, is they don't always express, validate, acknowledge, and then give the space. quiet leaders, because we want that space for ourselves, have more of a tendency to create that space. I have a tool that I teach a lot of my new people managers, and that is seat the pass.
Mm.
Before you go around the room, seat the pass. And I kind of did it with you earlier. I asked you the question, but then I repeated the question and elaborated about the question and went on with the question before I gave it over to you so that you had time to think about it. And it's a couple of steps. Hey, Tosh, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I want to find out what your thoughts are on this. 1 to 2 sentences. What are your high level thoughts on that? And after Tosh, I'd like to go around the room in a clockwise fashion, so that everybody has a chance to contribute on that. So what do you think, Tosh? Just in doing that, I've given that person chance to like take the weight off of having the pressure of having something clear and concise. And maybe that person wasn't paying attention to begin with, right? Like, hey, why don't you tell us what you think about this? Oh, what are we talking about? I'm sorry. Where do you, like, we've all been there, right? A quiet leader doesn't do that. An extroverted leader who has been trained with their emotional intelligence in tune knows how to do that, knows how to seed this past, create the space. And I feel like I'm rambling, but I want to share one more thing. There's another opportunity when going in around the room of creating equality. Hey, everybody, I want you to say 1 sentence, 3 words, half a sentence, all the way around the room. What that does is it gives the quiet leaders in the room a chance to feel equal with everybody else. And it gives the more extroverted people a chance to learn more concision and maybe put a little more thought into their one statement rather than taking us on the journey to their point, making their point. Yeah, that was a lot.
No, that last part, it comes back to creating the conditions again, which I think fundamentally is one of the key pieces of the puzzle. It's, are we creating the conditions for everyone's strengths to shine? And that what you're saying around seeding the path, I really like that one because again, it gives that time. It's like, this is what I'm asking you for. I'm going to give you time, or even just to say you're going to be the next person, and then you can go to an extrovert first, to the quick thinker, the fast thinker first, and then you can go back to that. So you can play with that in really great ways. But I also really like what you said on the last point around the equalness within the meeting. It's like everybody gets the same amount of time, everybody gets the same prompt. And then that again creates the conditions where everybody gets to take up space. And it builds that confidence for those who might not necessarily want to. It builds the courage and the confidence for them, but also it teaches the others to be like, it's your job to create space for other people too. It's not your job just to power through and take over. But as a leader, that's really important for us to do. It's, again, am I managing this meeting in a way where everybody gets the necessary input? Otherwise, why are they there? Like, if no one's inputting, get them out of the meeting. Or are we doing exactly what we need to do to get the outcomes that we need? And that's really, really important. I really, really like those. But
Yeah.
more, I guess, more tangibly, for those of my listeners who are holding themselves back, or they're telling themselves a story about being introverted, or they don't have what it takes to be a leader or to go for that promotion, or they're not like Tom or Sally over there who is more loud and more boisterous. Can you give them like tangible language that would articulate their introversion as a superpower? I know you've spoken about it a little bit throughout what you've said, but just like for them to go, this is my superpower, this is my strength, and this is how I would use it. So maybe like 3 or 4 if you have them, just to give them some language and like a little definition.
I would start, reframe your perception of leadership, reframe what it means. If my perception of leadership is that boisterous, loud, shiny, in the spotlight with the mic kind of thing, I need to look for and hold high other examples of quiet leaders. Barack Obama. There's a lot of quiet leaders who have risen quite high in their introversion. So find other ways of assigning what you value as leadership. Secondly, redefine visibility. Visibility doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in the meeting speaking the most. It could be in that one-on-one conversation. It could be in a very concise post email that explains a lot of things. It could be in having more research that is delivered at the time to share with the group. Like, visibility doesn't mean the loudest voice in the room. Visibility is honestly the biggest contribution to the conversation. And as quiet leaders, we can totally do that. And the last thing I would say is follow the principle of prepare, perform, recover. That's what I do. I know I'm going to be in a meeting. I know I have to do a presentation. I know I have to meet with this person, whatever it is. Prepare. We do that. We naturally do that. Perhaps we precipitate a little too much about it, but prepare, know that we're going to perform, and put on the performance. Like, a little bit of it is fake it till you make it, but we have to get outside of our comfort zone to create comfort for our listeners. A little of my discomfort to create comfort for my listener is worth it. I'm going to do it. And then afterwards, plan, schedule, block off that recovery time. If I have a full day training where I'm doing a full day communication workshop, that next day I am offline. I will check the emails in the morning, make sure there's nothing on fire, and then I am offline. I am out, I'm meditating, I'm walking in nature. Plan your recovery time. So prepare, perform, recover. Build it into your schedule so that you can be a high achiever in every situation.
Oh, yes, that is so good. I've worked on a reframe around fake it till you make it where I have act as if. So rather than like I'm faking myself into being this person, it's like act as if I'm the person that has that confidence, or act as if I'm the person that has that charisma for this presentation. Act as if I'm the person who's standing up there knowing what I'm talking about. And it's like a visualization. It's like picture yourself being the person that does that. Again, look to people who you admire, who have that look about them or have that presence, and act as if I'm that. Because your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So if you imagine it and almost like perform it in your mind, perform your perform step. It's like actually just run through it, run through the performance in your mind, because your brain doesn't know that you're not actually doing it. So you're giving yourself a run through, you're giving yourself that feel, and then you can go, oh, okay, I can lean in more here, or oh, I can actually step up a little bit here, and I do this all the time. Like at the time of recording this, I'm running an in-person workshop next week, which is my first one in years since before I've had my baby, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like a 5-hour in-person workshop, but I'm going through it in my mind. I'm going like, okay, this is what I'm going to look like when I stand up at the front. This is how I'm going to feel when I'm talking about it. This is what I'm going to chat about in the intermissions. I'm already performing it in my mind so that when I get there, my brain's like, wait, like we've done this. We've run through this. And that, yeah, it's a really great way to play with your mind. Whereas I find sometimes if I like fake it till I make it's like I'm faking it. You're still telling yourself it's not real. Whereas that act as if I'm telling my brain it's real, because it is, and you can't tell me otherwise. We have to trick our brains so much.
We do, because we have a negativity bias that drives us to find the worst case scenario in every situation. I love what you're talking about. And the visualization as a part of that present preparation stage is so essential, because not only does it help me prepare mentally, but it also helps me see all the little details. Oh, I'm going to remember to have a water bottle over there. And I'm going to, all of those things. And if I could just say good luck. I mean, I remember after we came out of COVID and we went back to doing live trainings, that first day I was like, I felt like a truck had hit me. I forgot how exhausting all that FaceTime and interaction can be. I mean, get yourself ready, drink a lot of coffee, and prepare for that recharge afterwards.
And this is also the other interesting thing, coming back to when you asked me about what are the things that I feel. It's like I get so energized in the moment when I'm running. I'm just like, oh my God, this is like elixir to me. But then as soon as I walk out, it's like a huge energy crash. So yeah, I definitely have my recover booked in. This has been an amazing conversation, and I always love to just make things really practical. And I love that you've got a book coming out. So we're going to put a link to that in the show notes, so where people can go and check it out, maybe pre-order if pre-orders are open, or if you've got a wait list or something. I would really love to check that out. But to close off, there's kind of two questions here. First
Okay.
is, what are 2 to 3 practical tips that you can share for introverted listeners that they can use right now to start building their confidence as a leader? So what is 2 to 3 things that they can do to kickstart that confidence? And then I'll ask the second question after that.
So I already mentioned break the seal early. Get your voice in the first 5 or 10 minutes. So it'd be redundant for me to repeat that, but do that one for sure.
Hey, we're all
Number
about repetition.
Yeah. Reframe the rush. Reframe the rush is, to your point, telling the brain that I'm not nervous, I'm excited. When I'm on a roller coaster, my body's going through the same thing, and I'm either screaming in terror or I'm laughing in joy. It just depends on how I reframe it. So when I get that moment where I start to feel my anxiety and pressure come up, reframe the rush. The last thing I would offer for metaphors, because they are deep for introverts, is metaphors move minds. Introverts have a precise way of linking things to data, and it is really essential for data-driven leaders to link that data to something that they can picture as well. So practice using metaphors on a regular basis so that we're not doing a download, we're having a dialogue, and we're sharing metaphors to link our data to a picture that they can follow.
Yeah, that's storytelling, right? How can I tell a story with this information that brings
Right.
that pulls people into it? Yeah, metaphors move minds. I love that. So good. Is that your like little key skill of like how you can work with the letters to make the match? Because you even said
Yeah.
like reframe the rush. I'm like, oh, this is just so good. It's so handy for the brain to remember.
Brain is a meaning-making machine, not a precision recording device. We need talking points. We need sound bites. And one of my frameworks, well, most of my frameworks have headlines or sound bites, depends on if you're in the media or if you're in traditional. Headlines are important, not only when you're managing up, they only want the headline and then they're going to go from there. But start your email with a headline. Start everything with a headline. It might be the only thing you get out there, and it's going to be more memorable after that as well.
That's another great tip. That's another great tip for people is how can they get the headline in, get the first shot, the starter. The second part of my question is what is 1 or 2 things that a leader, so for people who are managing a team who are listening to this, what can they do if they recognize that they maybe have quieter people on their team? What are 1 to 2 things that they can do to better support them?
Number one, check in with them privately on what works best for them, right? I work with a lot of teams that I would say are on the spectrum, right? Neurodiversity. They're more interested in coding than they are in communicating with people, and communicating with them ahead of time to ask them what's the easiest way for you to make contribution. So checking in ahead of time to get a sort of pulse check of how do you like to operate in the meetings, and then use that as a communication manual with that person. Secondly is normalize recharge. Have a built-in white space. Tell your direct reports, I want to see white space on your calendar for times where you're disconnecting and re-grounding, getting a sense of where you are, prioritizing for where you're going, giving yourself some creative space, or just recovering from that meeting that we just had. But have dedicated recharge space on your calendar.
That is such an important one because that is what amplifies resilience. Because if we don't have that white space, if we don't have that recharge time, we're just going to keep going and going and going. And there's going to become a bottom to that bucket, that bucket of energy. But if we can maintain those pockets of recharge and white space, we can keep filling up the bucket and we don't run the risk of running empty. So I really love that. Those are amazing practical steps. And I love the ones for the individuals. What can they do to start developing their confidence, and then also what leaders can do? Amazing. As we come to the end of the episode, is there anything else that you would love to share with the audience that would be really helpful for them that we haven't spoken about?
Just the critical importance, we mentioned it at the beginning, but the critical importance of reframing your own perception of the way you show up. And, I have imposter syndrome. I think we all have moments, my imposter monster comes raging on sometimes. If I start my day or my pre-meeting preparation with a, how do I add value? Why is my voice important? Why is this message important? Like, how do I know that I deserve to be heard? If I'm asking myself questions that are putting myself in a resourceful place, it's going to reframe the way I look at my own leadership and help me show up in a more resourceful way every time.
Yes, that the story we tell ourselves is the most important story, whether it's about ourselves, about other people, about situations. It's really important to check in and be aware. What am I telling myself about myself in these situations? So I really like that. I have a standard practice at the end of my episodes where I do 3 rapid fire questions to find out a little bit more about you. So first one is, what is the best advice you've ever received that's helped you to be a great leader?
You never know how far you can go until you've gone too far.
Ooh.
And you've got to do it. You've got to see, how loud can you talk? How much of your space can you take up? How eloquent can you put your words and your gestures together? You won't know how far you can go until you've gone too far, which means you've got to embrace failure and you've got to go outside your comfort zone.
Oh, like that one. What is one thing that helps you to feel courageous to do scary things?
I have an alter ego named Chip.
Mine's called Debs.
Oh, yeah, would too. Yeah. And I just embody Chip. I let Chip take over, and like it's sort of like a disassociation. I'm gonna let this crazy, wild, extroverted person go do it. And I will be honest, I have a lot of emotionally support extroverts that I take to those friends and to those parties to handle that situation.
Oh, love it. It's so good. And last one, what is one boundary that you uphold that supports you to be your best?
I have a no plan Sunday, which means I don't allow anybody to make plans for me or make plans on Sunday. I wake up Sunday morning and then I decide what I'm going to do with that day. And that's it.
Oh,
That unstructured opportunity gives me the chance to really just let my ADD lead the way and just do whatever I feel like that day.
oh, that gives me glimpses of pre-childhood life. Where I'm like, oh, bliss. We do try not to be very like overly planned because I think that's important with kids because otherwise you build it into their nervous system that they're always busy. And anyway, that's a whole other thing. Thank you so much, Salvatore. It was amazing to hear your insights and to just the way that you speak about the introversion advantage and how introverts can just add so much value and what their superpowers are. So where can people find you? And we'll pop that in the show notes as well.
Thank you, Tashi. Yeah, if any of this has resonated with you, please go to clearandcompellingplaybook.com. It'll get you the first chapter from my book, and it'll get you on the list to let you know when the book comes out. And I'm on LinkedIn. If you have a video of yourself speaking and would like some candid feedback or a keynote that might help you elevate your communication, I love to see what's driving a person and how we can help.
Amazing. Thank you. And we'll pop those in the show notes. And as always, for anyone who has enjoyed this episode, if you want to let Salvatore know what you've taken away, what has added value to you, please reach out to him on LinkedIn. We'll also put his website there as well. So you can also reach him there. And also let me know if you've enjoyed this episode, especially if you're a fellow introvert who is going to use the practical tools and tips as well. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being on Lead with Less, and really appreciate your time and your energy.
Thank you so much.
Hey, that's all from me today. Thank you so much for listening to Lead with Less. It means the world to me if you could take a moment to leave a rating and a review on Apple, or just rate with 5 stars on Spotify. It means a lot to the growth and the expansion of the podcast. And if you know any other people leaders who could do with a dose of inspiration to level up their leadership skills, then please forward on this podcast to them. I would really appreciate it. And as always, if you have any feedback or have any thoughts, please message me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or email. I'd love to hear from you.